aggressive. When trying to be moderate, you appear staying still. Things come to you from nowhere. Things get involved without reason. Something very wicked and malicious influences sudden mistakes. It is beyond of defeat. It is beyond any control of changes. It is beyond any fighting back. Just looking in amazement. There is a revelation. We are just tiny, so absolutely dust. Worldly sins conquer the world. Worldly devour our whole life. Chomjan, dawn night. The poem starts with the confident tone of a young poet who expressed a belief in the power of human potential in achieving the ultimate goal of life. The latter part of the whole poem conveys a feeling of amazement to the point of despair when one grows older and is more or less forced to accept the limitation of one's life and circumstances. One has to come to terms with life as it is, and to accept that one does not have absolute control of one's life. The last two stanzas are quite significant, as they secretly express the weakness of the poet, with whom the readers can readily identify themselves. They sympathize the poet and share the same despair and amazement. The poet is not superior to her readers, for they share the same faith. Thus, when the poet comes to the conclusion as a revelation that we are all absolutely as insignificant as dust, they could only agree. At this point, the poet can convey a real message that worldly sin conquered the world and devour our whole life. Nevertheless, this message is not meant to be a declaration of truth that one should accept without reacting to it. If the reader realizes this, they must do something about it. This is the impact intended by the poet, as we can easily see from the title of the poem, A Revelation. The revelation of the complexity of life and the weakness of human nature should serve as a good introduction to a serious spiritual life. Under the Rain and Thunder, an attempt to go beyond. Under the Rain and Thunder is in fact a diary in poetry form of the poet when she was on retreat in Suan Mok Monastery. This explains why the content of the work has a prominent harmony of Dharma reflection throughout. The title of the book in Thai is a parallel to a Buddhist ritual explaining the state of mind of an enlightened person who will not be disturbed by any perception or any joy or suffering. In Thai, the ritual is for ไม่ต้องฟ้าร้องไม่ถึง meaning untouched by the rain and the thunder. But Jamdong Siratanin is saying that for ยังต้องฟ้าร้องยังถึง mean still moved by the rain and thunder. The title in Thai shows that the poet is not claiming that she has achieved anything special in her practice or training of Dharma in her retreat. Yet this poetic record is an evidence of an attempt to go beyond, to reach the state of serenity that is not under the rain and thunder of life anymore. The first poem selected here illustrates the importance of contemplation of nature in the practice of Dharma. Black ants. Yesterday, millions of black ants migrated like bursting of a black stream. At dawn, the stream looked so fierce. Afternoon, it was still strong. At dusk, on the meditation path, the stream became so tiny, winding like a dry waterway. From where to where, who knows? Among the million, how many know their destination? Just following others. Where does this end? They don't know. Tired, exhausted, so serious, never ask question. Just pushing forward with all their might. Maybe just a very few know their destination. Jamdong Siratanin, Under the Rain and Thunder. The inspired question in the poet's mind, a question of the purpose of life. The black ants are obviously compared to ordinary beings who are ignorantly follow the ways of the world without questioning. The poet equally uses her contemplation on nature in observing the beautiful butterfly in nature as a symbol of illusion in the poem Butterfly's Illusion. Butterfly's illusion. Catch your thought when it moves. Like catching a butterfly. Hold it tight in your fist. Once you open your fist to see the color, nothing is there. 1 minute and the butterfly dancing again in the air. While you're moving, love, anger, sorrow, joy. Stare at it hard, it vanishes. Stable still as long as one of God. The mind moves with the thought. You know that thoughts are illusions, coming, going, changing ceaselessly. Various colors, rhythm and methods. The wings can never be fixed. Who knows us how to teach our children not to be lured by butterflies? Hundreds fly in their heart. How to catch the butterfly that miss their heart? Catch it again and again, to clear ends, to purify the mind, not to be precariously moved by the wind and thoughts of butterflies. จำนงศรีรัตนิน Under the rain and thunder. The metaphor of butterfly creates a very appropriate one. Butterfly are most alluring and charming quality. The message is a real to practice mindfulness in order to clear ignorance, to purify the mind. A transformation of wisdom is for everyone. These two poets impact the mind of the reader. First, the poet doesn't intend to entertain nor preach their reader. Their poetry is mostly short and tend to communicate their thought and not too prominently stylized in their poetic expression. The poems such as attachment, angle, and curving. The work is mellow by the fact that the poet relate and share their feeling in a friendly manner, so the reader can identify with the poet. These rapport arise from the poet. Since the poet to employ a special diction, they can create a neutral sense of their message. Yeah, okay. See, the poetry of Jamnong Sri Ratanin is an interesting evidence of the transformation of Thai didactic poetry. They are showing their reader a direct path to wisdom through a serious practice of mindfulness. The fact that the poets themselves are practicing Buddhists help to recommend their advice to the reader. They are lay women, not Bhikshuni. They are consciously giving Dharma for the benefit of all beings. Thank you for your attention.
The second no, not working.
You won't hear it when it's
Hello? No. Yes? The second presenter this afternoon is Amy Holmes Togjung Dapa. Her biography is on page 227, and the title of her paper is Remembering Peling Ani Wangjin, Oral Biography and Women in Tibetan Buddhist Cultures. Thank you.
Good afternoon, kia ora. Thank you very much for having me, and thank you to everybody in Vietnam and in Sakyadhita for organising this wonderful conference and for your generosity. This afternoon I'm here to talk to you a bit about a Sikkimese woman. First of all, I must discuss her teacher. Togten Shakespeare was a Tibetan religious teacher who rose from obscurity in the late 19th and early 20th centuries to become a well-regarded lineage founder in the wider Tibetan Himalayan cultural realm, with students from throughout the Himalayas. As fascinating as his community of students was, some important details regarding its composition are lacking, particularly details about the role of women. While women were certainly part of his lineage, and Togten Shakespeare was married with 2 wives and had several daughters who all became renowned practitioners in their own right, there is little mention of any of the female members of his community in the official textual records of his life. Why is this? This paper will present the argument based on the evidence of the life story of a female student of Togten Shakespeare's that women did have status in Togten Shakespeare's community and had diverse reasons for travelling to join his community to gain a religious education and the opportunity to practice Buddhism. I will argue that the absence of women from the records of Togten Shakespeare's lineage, and by extension perhaps the absence from other Tibetan Buddhist lineage records, is overwhelmingly due to the nature of oral biography in different regions of the Himalayas rather than simply gender discrimination. I will focus on the life story of a woman named Paling Aniongsan in order to explore this theory. Aniongsan was born sometime between 1880 and 1885. She was born in the Paling area of West Sikkim into the Takshung Tarpa clan of the Hlopo Tongto Rishi Besenge families of the Sikkimese Hlopo aristocracy, who trace their ancestry back to the 13th century. Aniongsan was said to have been ordained as she wore robes and had a shaved head and never married. However, her ordination status is not confirmed, since the existence of a historical Bhikshuni lineage in West Sikkim is contested, and the place where she would have taken her robes is not immediately clear. Even if she did not take ordination in Sikkim, Aniongsan's travels would have given her plenty opportunity to do so elsewhere. At some time in her teens, Aniongsan left Sikkim on her own to travel to Bodh Gaya and then through Nepal to visit the stupas of Kathmandu. From there, she travelled on to Tibet. She eventually reached Kham in eastern Tibet, where she studied with Shakespeare, and after that she visited Sari. In Sikkimese oral memory, no one is sure how long her travels lasted. One memory remains clear, however, which is that she took part in the Sari Rongkor Chemo, a physically grueling and spiritually challenging pilgrimage that went the entire way around the Sari mountain in southeastern Tibet, a circuit that went through jungles and over mountain tracks. Aniongsan's presence in Kham and her participation in the Rongkor Chemo does not provide any explicit information about what she might have learned during her time in Tibet. She must have been quite an advanced practitioner, however, as when she returned to Western Sikkim, she established her own teaching community. She became renowned for teaching the Nyungne fasting practice of Avalokiteshvara to many local women. She established a retreat cabin in Paling. It seems that she also taught meditation and more advanced inner yoga called Tsalung practices as well. She passed away at a young age in her 40s during the mid-1920s. In recent years, scholars of Tibetan literature have begun to establish the remarkable range and number of texts available in Tibetan language that fall into the genre of biography or life stories. While these texts vary greatly in terms of the vocation and region of their authors and their content, one fact has become clear: stories about the lives of women are largely absent. Like the lives of many other women, Paling Aniongsan's life has not been or received biographical treatment. This seems to indicate that yet another female practitioner has been passed over in the depiction of a lineage. Or does it? The question that I continually return to in my research is what led to Paling Aniongsan's missing biography. Was her story never written due to a bias against female biographical subjects or due to discrimination against women during her lifetime? There is a great deal of evidence to suggest that she may have not received the discriminatory treatment faced by other women practitioners in Tibetan history. This may be for several reasons. To begin with, Paling Aniongsan's family background may explain why she was supported in her choice of religious vocation. The fact that she was from a religious family, where full-time religious practice was common, may have influenced her decision to live a religious life and may also explain people's supportive attitudes towards her. The fact her family was wealthy is another factor, since she would have had access to sponsorship for her education. In addition, the treatment of women in Sikkimese society is liberal in comparison with neighbouring areas of the Himalayas. Women inherit a share of their family's property and are provided with their own wealth when they marry. They have historically been able to work in occupations outside of the home. These factors combined may explain why Anyongsan was readily supported as a religious teacher when she returned to Western Sikkim. Still, it is remarkable that Anyongsan was able to study with Tokten Shakasri and was empowered to teach when she returned to Sikkim. This suggests that Tokten Shakasri's community in Kham did provide women with opportunities to engage in tantric practice to the highest level. Under the circumstances, if Paling Anyongsan was a student of sufficient aptitude to be empowered to teach, why is her name and life story absent from the records of Tokten Shakasri's life and students? There are plenty of other examples to support the argument that this absence is due to discrimination based on gender, but in this instance, Paling Anyongsan's biography can be interpreted in other ways. Relying on oral biography as a credible source is often frowned upon due to its apparently subjective nature. After all, one is relying on students and other sources who remember the subject in an overwhelmingly positive way in their recreation of the subject's life. However, a written religious biography is similarly subjective. Religious biographies are often written as part of a wider process of lineage building, which involves important decisions regarding the depiction of the subject. There are other factors to take into account as well, including the institutional expectations of the subject. To what extent is the lineage already secure, and what factors influence the act of remembering and thereby the composition of the biography of a given person? These questions can be asked about the subject of any biography and also about the biographer, who, after all, ultimately creates an image of the subject. There are several possible reasons to explain why Paling Anyongsan's biography was never transformed from collective memory into text. First of all, she was a figure from a small community and may have not been considered a major contributor to Tokten Shakasri's lineage. She was a renowned practitioner in the lineages that she was educated in, but she did not have any worldly institution established at the time of her death. It should be noted that many male practitioners also do not have biographies, and probably for similar reasons. Tokten Shakasri himself did not establish worldly institutions such as monasteries. However, instead he established large practice communities, that is, communities without physical institutions such as large monasteries, throughout the Himalayas that needed to be maintained because they served to continue unique practice lineages that would have otherwise become lost after his death. The fact that Paling Anyongsan's biography continues to be transmitted in oral form is testimony to the continued significance of her story and the richness of oral biographies as a source for understanding Buddhist women's history. The act of telling and remembering the oral biography, in the case of Paling Anyongsan, provides the teller and the audience with a captivating and inspirational tale that serves a localized purpose within her small community. Perhaps when the tale becomes dimmer as the immediate recipients of it pass away, and a new generation of Sikkimese Buddhists take their place, textualization will occur by necessity. As it stands, though, the real events of Paling Anyongsan's life seem to remain more inspirational to followers of her practice lineage as a vivid illustration of the potential paths available for women in different parts of the Himalayas. Her life story also illustrates alternative modes of memory and authority within Buddhist societies. Thank you.
Our third presenter this afternoon is Judith Liu, and she will speak on writing the lives of Buddhist women. Her biography is on page 93.
It is my great honor and privilege to be before this august audience. History is a tale well told. What we have typically learned as what constitutes history, however, are the tales of great people. These great people tend to be males or individuals who have somehow distinguished themselves because of their deeds and actions. Thus, their tales tend to be told and passed down from generation to generation, first verbally, and if fortunate, eventually recorded. Stories are pieces of a jigsaw puzzle, and when patiently and skillfully pieced together, form a beautiful picture. All of us have stories, and the papers that have been presented during the past 2 days are helping us to see the value of writing about the lives of Buddhist women. The papers we have heard have told us how to gather various pieces for the puzzle. These pieces of the puzzle come in forms of letters, written documents, other people's stories, autobiographical and biographical accounts, stories about visions and prophecies, and personal tales. When all of these pieces are crafted together, they can help us make an interpretation of what the various events of a person's life means. Thus, writing about an individual is an act of making meaning. Today, I encourage and challenge you, as earlier speakers such as 11thSakyadhita DeVito, to each and every one of you in this room to create and record your own stories. If you record these stories, they will endure over time. These stories will not only help members of your generation, but future generations as well. Gathering life stories through oral histories can be an amazing adventure that permits the teller of the tale to be the author of her own story. It helps the storyteller to leave behind what she would like others to know about her and about what she considers to be the meaningful events in her life. Passing down these stories also serves the function of teaching the next generation that the lessons that they have learned and to share their wisdom. To write about your life or the life of a Buddhist woman, engage in the process of recording a life story. In other words, document, as Roseanne Fries said earlier. So, how do you do this? To begin with in the process is begin with a person, select a person, and that person can be either yourself or to select another person with whom you wish to have a relationship with and to write about. The next step is to select an approach, and this can be done face-to-face. It can be done through mail, creating those letters. You can do this by telephone, interviewing a person through telephone. And with the age of computers and what I'm using right now, you can use either simultaneous live feeds or you can communicate simultaneously online. The next thing is to conduct background research. Learn everything you possibly can about the person. Review what you know about the person with others who also are familiar with the woman you are interested in writing about. Create a question list. Use the background research you have gathered to create questions. Use open-ended questions. In other words, questions that are not typically answered in yes or no. And more importantly, it's not about just gathering facts, it's about including questions about feelings and description. Preparing for the interview, make an appointment. This is crucial. Before the interview occurs, send a reminder. And as we have witnessed here today, test your equipment. Make sure it works. Review your question list, and to be well organized, pack your equipment together so that you are prepared on the day of the interview to grab everything in one bag. When you're conducting the interview, select a noise and distraction-free location. Begin with simple questions, and after you've asked simple questions such as name, birthplace, where this person has grown up, begin then asking the most important questions that you have considered to be important. Most importantly, active listening. Listen while the person is speaking. Also, regardless of what technology you use, record your field notes. Handwrite your notes. Handwrite what you are hearing from the person. Ask follow-up questions. And you also want to be, during the time that you are hearing these wonderful stories, be mindful of great stories, which will then serve as a way of starting your story about these great Buddhist women. Ending the interview, at the very end, ask yourself, what did you learn? and also to repeat some of the key points that you have with your speaker and repeat it to the speaker. If you are fortunate enough, request additional appointments. And also ask this person for other contacts. Because again, when gathering information, you want to get as many perspectives as possible. Finally, after the interview, once you are in your own home and working with this material, review your notes, listen to the tapes, listen or view the videos. Whatever way you have recorded this story, it is to use this information that you have to generate follow-up questions for the next interview. Also, if possible, transcribe the materials as soon as possible and share this with the person with whom you have just interviewed. We have heard many great tales thus far. I was moved by Julia Huang's paper on the 28th. My mother has just completed her 8th cycle of the Chinese astrological calendar. That is, 96 years ago, my mother was born in the year of the ox, and 2009 is the year of the ox. I have just finished a book about my mother's life and her education in an American Episcopalian missionary school in Wuchang, Hubei province from 1926 to 1935. I learned so much about myself and obtained a much better sense of myself by listening to the stories my mother told me. My hope is that she will live to see the book in print, but I now know that regardless of what happens, my mother knows what I have done with her tales. When you record the lives of Buddhist women, they too will know what you have done with their tales. Share the Dharma you know. Expand what you know by using what Sister Malia Wang spoke of as ethnographic skills, or the skills to study people to write the lives of Buddhist women. Accept my encouragement and challenge to write the lives of Buddhist women. Use this occasion, this very occasion, to meet with other members of your faith and to schedule a follow-up meeting to begin the process. Thus, if history is a tale well told, then her story is a tale well worth being told. Thank you very much.
Our final paper this afternoon will be won by Tik Nu Hung Nhu, and it is called Bhikshuni 3 High, A Centered Lotus Life.
My topic is Bhikshuni Jihai, a Centered Lotus Life. In the annual of 2000 of Buddhist history, the image of Bhikshuni 1938-2003 is a bright star in the Vietnamese Buddhist literature. She was refined an enlightened scholar and philosopher with a dignity that elevated her like pure lotus. Her talents merit her inclusion among eminent Buddhist women. First, the life of Bhikshuni Jihai. Bhikshuni talented and worthy of royal descent. She was born Tôn Nữ Phùng Khánh on 9, 1938 in a family sick brother in Visa village Thừa Thiên in Huế, the in central Vietnam. She was in the Tâm Hỷ by the respected Bhikkhu Thích Tịnh Khiết, the head of Buddhist Sangha at Tường Vân Pagoda, Huế. When she was 3 months in her mom's her father Ưng Thiều was a royal descent from Nguyen dynasty, and her mother Đặng Thị Quế was a great person that Miss writer alongside her. You are as kind and the most thoughtful mother in the world. Phương Khánh grew up as a gentle and beautiful student who won many in her day. But even as a teen, her natural intelligence, talents, wisdom, and dignity came for and from mid-youth and passions. In 1990, Bikini Chi Hai graduated with from the Pedagogical University of Huế, after months of teaching at Phan Chu Trinh High School in Da Nang province. She went abroad. In 1964, she graduated with an MA in Literature at Princeton University in the United States. In the same year, she became a Buddhist nun at Hồng Ân, Pagoda, under the guidance of respected Bikini Diệu Không, a religious Vietnamese nun. In 1970, she received Bikini ordination. At an ordination ceremony Vĩnh Gia in Da Nang, Hồng Ân, Pagoda, her determination and virtue will never be forgotten by her Dharma companions. We still remember the initial stage of monastic life. Bikini Chi Hai proved to be a self-respect. She was extremely well loved and respected by teachers and sisters in Dharma. When she moved to southern Vietnam, she devoted much of her time to research and education. The entire monastic community and laity as well were really fond of her. As she became more and more well-known, we were all very proud of her. Bikini Chi Hai was among the first lecturers at Vạn Hạnh Zen Monastery in Ho Chi Minh City and the Vietnam Institute of Advanced Buddhist Studies, now the Vietnam Buddhist Academy Institute. Founded in 1984, it should be noted she was the who taught Buddhism in Vietnam during that period. At Academy, she taught Pratimoksha and gave many lectures to monks and nuns on the Middle Discourse in English. She taught Pratimoksha and served as Acharya and the chief instructor for the board of examiners at many ordination ceremonies. In addition, she was the abbess of 3 temples in Ho Chi Minh City. Diệu Không Nunnery. In 1903, she was appointed as the of the Buddhist Research Institute. In December 2003, Bikini Chi Hai left in accident. The Vietnamese Buddhist nuns. The young generation of Buddhist nuns has lost an extremely talented and virtuous teacher, and brilliant star in Vietnamese Buddhist had faded. But at the eminent Bhikkhu Thích Hiển Pháp, even though the original nun of Bikini Chi Hai had such right and strength for succeeding generation of nuns, impelled to strive studies to improve the high quality of Vietnamese nuns of Dharma propagation, to liberate beings from ignorance, to serve the Buddhist congregation nation, and to win happiness and living beings. And now continue to pray and write Chi Hai. We now about Buddhism and secular learning should is literature. Not for humility should to and should take help by skills successful means in everything we do, we can to a short an achievement than no dream of our life. She continued in a city with wishing nearly works in and origin seasons. Religions and spiritual the history of Vietnamese literature, explore Buddhist literature, and and research who master the doctrine of both Theravada and Mahayana. She devoted to education and research. And religion, she selected works from antique Chinese literature, Germans, and even many recognize that so no historically marked as knowledge of North Asian and Western literary tradition, work in the fields of Chinese, Pali, Sanskrit, English, French, German, Salazar. Her Western literature became especially famous, including works of Gandhi, Hermes, lyrics from her Shida. Her school days deserve special mention. Her translation of this work are marvelous. Her translations are so beautiful and truthful that people like them repeatedly. They get of reading the original version, but with the natural and poly style. In her preface to this translation, Bhikkhuni Tiha expressed her perception of life while still a very young nun. The entire woman had an uncompared of life. Her felt expectation in thousands of lives, although lonely, powerless, and faced with uncertainty. The sea free foundation of medieval and her Buddhist translation were infused with reality, creativity, and elegance. Now I continue to present about charitable activities. And respected as an emanation combines to the she said charity not mean financial but to the sensation of in the sensation of pleasure. And lepers or the head information and in remote land. This similar Buddha of compassion and wisdom. Not came in contact with her in the tea. She said the I speak patience that she and how to before their death. Her to her in me to whom she gave loving care. Is a to the same being great compassion to virtues enlightenment. She wrote, "Great compassion like a flower, blooms from real wood, with like the lamp of concentration." Vì Trí Hải, her spirit of reflect in the community were a sweetly scented love of compassion and wisdom. Her and to share wisdom and some spirit inspiration. Thank you for attention.
I'd like to thank all our speakers this afternoon for a wonderful panel, and thank you for being here. I'm sure there are now announcements to follow. Thank you.
Dạ chúng con yêu
thảo luận thì hôm nay là câu hỏi địa điểm cũng như điều phối tiêu chí vừa xong. Và trước khi cũng thỉnh chúng tôi từ đức và toàn thể đại biểu nghỉ giải lao và sau đó chúng ta đi vào
venue of the workshop so that we can start the workshop of today's program. Thank you.
và chương trình cho ngày mai 7:30 đại biểu quan lên hội trường, 8 giờ tọa thiền tại cái thiền, 8 giờ 30 tham luận tại hội trường, 10 giờ 15 nghỉ giải lao, 11 giờ 30 thọ trai là chương trình của ngày mai.
much. That's the important thing. That's why we want to go to the Dharma
from Chiang Mai, and she was invited to spend a Vassana retreat 3 months in Chiang Mai. There one monk, Theravada monk, but others Mahayana. There are no Theravada nuns and monks in Hong Kong. This is interesting. In Hong Kong, there are no Theravada monks and nuns. One Theravada monk, in his temple, he ordained 15 girls. So finally, our people has become international. I'm proud. In Thailand, she had visited the village. But she had 2 other analysts also.
I'm a teacher. I learn BA now until exam ready. I teach Kalambu. Now many nuns learn study. Nepal, Myanmar, London, nuns now study multi-learn.
What she made where she studied Thai, told you lesson herself. They are very well organized, very well recognized, but they are still cinematas. And they are going to reinstate it as a thing.
To eat or drink moderately before we sit.
Thực hiện các thi cần tìm một cái nơi yên tĩnh và cô nhận xét rằng cái chỗ mà chúng ta đang ngồi đây cũng khá yên tĩnh, rồi không cũng nên mặc áo quần rộng rãi thoải mái và cũng
Find center and simply rock behind back until you find the center so that your body is sitting directly above your sitting bones.
The browser companies make browsers, Microsoft, Apple, Google. Và những hãng mà những hãng đã làm đến cái browser như là Microsoft, what else? Google, Microsoft, Apple. Okay. They are making browsers and following the rules. So the code also doesn't follow the rules. That means the phone company who makes the browser have to follow the rules. Yes. So that the pages are uniform. So
trạng thái tâm. Hãy quan sát. Cũng tương tự như vậy, chúng ta cũng áp dụng chánh niệm tỉnh giác đối với tất cả những hoạt động của tâm. Khi có một cảm thọ nào khởi lên thì chúng ta chỉ quan sát và để cho nó trôi qua. Chúng ta quan sát khi tư tưởng khởi lên và cũng để cho tư tưởng trôi qua. Chúng ta không có nắm bắt một cảm thọ hay một tư tưởng nào, và chúng ta cũng không để cho mình bị dính mắc vào đó. Chúng ta chỉ để cho tất cả cảm giác và tư tưởng trôi qua. Và như vậy chúng ta đã thay đổi từ hành động đến hiện hữu. Chúng ta không
Thank you very much. The next meditation master who will give instruction today is Ramamirita Daktodona from Rikpa Association, Le Rablin, France. hay có thể gọi là bổn sư của chúng ta. Và chỉ cần chúng ta cảm thấy rằng là sự hiện hữu của họ